Pour la nouvelle conférence de cet après-midi sur le plateau de la Sirha Télé, à suivre sur sirha-télé.com, nous allons évoquer le marché de la restauration en 2017 avec cette question, comment surfer sur la tendance pour renforcer ses avantages compétitifs? Les réponses avec NPD Group et Maria Bertosch, Industry Expert Food Service Europe, et le vice-président de Food Service Europe, Jochen Pinsker.
Many thanks. We're very happy to be here and bring to you some of the most recent global insights that we've collected with our tools at NPD Group. We're covering insights in currently 13 global markets that represents around 75% of the global GDP, and we're very happy to bring some of the most recent trends to you. So first of all, the question is, from a country perspective, who's leading global growth today? Looking into the market in terms of different geographies, we split it into three big ones. There's a North American, a European market, as well as an Asian market. And actually, there's little growth across all of these geographies. Not in the past, but in the most recent year, actually, we've seen the European market being one of the strongest one, with a traffic growth of around 0.8%. The North American market was much more flat compared to that, and the Asian market also around 1% growth. On top of this traffic growth, there's actually people spending more per visit, and that growth is leading to an even further growth in terms of consumer spend. Consumers are spending more in the global restaurant industry. And when we look into some of these geographies in a little more detail, we see that the US is doing slightly better than Canada these days. Talking about the Asian markets, specifically Australia, but also China has been leading growth. Japan is just about flat, but focusing more on the European markets. Actually, it is both the UK as well as Germany really spearheading growth in the European market today. Unfortunately, the French restaurant market was not so strong over the last 12 months, with zero traffic growth, so people did not go out in the restaurant industry more than they used to do in the previous year, and Spain just slightly recovering over the last 12 months. There is little growth in the European market, but it is very important to notice that actually we're coming out of a period of a relatively long recession for the food service industry. Year after year, starting after the financial crisis in 2008, the market was going down, and only this year, only 2016, was the first year where we were seeing growth at above 0.5%. So now the market is around 55 billion visits as we collected in the big 5 European markets. So summarizing where we see food service growing, actually from a country perspective, Australia is doing quite well. It's driven by a fast casual market as well as an interest in healthy eating. Great Britain has actually been leading the European food service market growth, but there was uncertainty coming in after the Brexit decision. US and Canada were really less dynamic than they used to be. France is still affected by the economy as well as the aftermath of the terrorist attacks. Germany stays on the positive trend, but this is more strongly driven by people spending more money per visit rather than going out into the restaurant industry more frequently. Spain does recover progressively. Actually, they have been down for a number of years, and the first slight growth is what we've seen over the past 12 months. The Italians are a little more optimistic than before. Russia is still in a deep economic crisis. But that's just the overall size of the market and how that trended. But it's really more important about what's going on underneath that market and how did it come to that positive and negative development in the restaurant industry over the last 12 months. First of all, in the past, we really used to split the market into 3 core segments. They used to be the most expensive, the full-service restaurant side. There was something which we call quick-service restaurants, retail, imbiss, snack places, etc. And there's also the cost sector side, mainly school catering, business catering, B&I catering. That was the 3 big segments of the market. But today we do believe that they don't really exist as, anymore in this structure as they used to be. The market segmentation in that landscape has changed over time. There still is a cost sector. There still is full-service restaurants. On the full-service restaurant side, it's much more split into a casual dining side as well as a fine dining side. The difference is, in the first place, the amount of money that people spend. But specifically in this quick service side of the restaurant industry, there is really one kind of classic fast food and takeaway market which is remaining. But besides that, there has been growing a delivery segment over the past couple of years that's now really big enough and does address a specific need of consumers today. At the same time, there's a separate, what we call a retail convenience side. What used to be retailers, supermarkets, bakeries, gas stations, delis, they have really become a very significant player in the restaurant industry. And in between that quick service and full service side of the market, there's something new which we call fast casual today. What was driving that was really a series of demographical and social changes that we've seen in European countries. I'm just going to list them now, but we'll talk through some or most of them in a little more detail. We talk about homing and e-commerce having an impact on the market, technology and social networks, urbanization of consumers and their mobility. There's a trend for premiumization. Youth unemployment is driving the market and impacting the market to a significant extent. We see populations in Europe aging. There's more and more single households. There's more and more women in workforce. And health, well-being, and authenticity have really become elements that drive consumers' behavior. Let me start with the element on homing, because that's one of the most important one, probably. What do we mean by homing? Actually, researchers around 10 years ago talked about cocooning. What we see today is not cocooning anymore, because cocooning means that you're spending time at home and you're spending time at home by yourself. What my kids are doing, this is much more homing, because they have a social life and they move their social life into the homes of their own home, but also their friends or their neighbors or their parents' homes. Eating away from home becomes cooking together. Going into the beer garden becomes having a barbecue together. Going to the cinema becomes watching DVD together or streaming videos. Playing pool and darts and playing foosball, that actually becomes playing console games either together or just virtually together, connected through the internet. Certainly also more and more people work from home, and the smoking ban has become a catalyst for this homing trend that we've seen. And obviously it did have a significant impact on the industry, but also together with kind of one effect of homing, meaning that we order and we buy more and more stuff from home. E-commerce has been growing throughout basically all the European countries. It's still on a double-digit growth, and it probably will be for the next couple of years. And that certainly has a negative impact on the restaurant industry. When we analyze the number of visits to the restaurant industry driven by a shopping trip, that's a snack, that's a cappuccino, that's a coffee or anything else that you do between visiting one boutique and another boutique. If you don't go to these boutiques anymore, if you go into the shopping malls, if you don't go into the cities, obviously these visits, they're just left for the market. There's a little more consumed at home, but it's actually not a zero-sum game. The market as a whole is losing in terms of visits. And there's really only one segment that benefits from that, which is delivery services. The e-commerce for the restaurant industry, the delivery services, are the ones and the only ones that benefit from it. When we're looking into the European delivery service market, actually we see that market being at around 8 billion euros worth in the year 2015. One additional factor that I shared about a social change that we see is technology. And technology is influencing the way how we choose, how we order, how we pay, how we customize things. But also it does support the delivery service, because this is really where technology can be used at its best. And I'm not talking about drones delivering the pizza to you, but it's about ordering via an aggregator, it's about just visiting where your order currently is, it's about choosing as easy as it is as possible for consumers. Meanwhile, 6% of the European restaurant industry is delivered. 6% of the value of restaurant meals, of what people spend for ready-prepared food and beverages, is delivered. And this trend is just only growing. But when we look into technology, it's even more than that. I think it is important to see that meanwhile, 1/3 of these delivery orders are actually placed via the internet or via an app. 1/3 is already digitally ordered. Out of this 1/3 digitally ordered, around 2/3 is already ordered via what we call an aggregator. A Deliveroo, a Delivery Hero, etc. Any app, any platform that is not only the platform of a restaurant or one delivery chain or one delivery player, that is the platform that really aggregates and offers the services of a number of players all at the same time. There's one age group which we call the millennials, and they have just such an important impact on the market. A millennial on average eats out around 50 times more frequently than the average population. So they are a core driver, but they are also a great source of change for the market. First of all, just to describe these millennials, they're the first generation to grow up with the internet. They are more familiar with technology than any previous generation. They're entering the workforce now, so their life is actually changing, and they are the consumers for the future in the first place. They also redefine how we communicate all together. And now looking into some statistics for the European countries again, and how different age groups, and specifically here the millennials, have actually changed in terms of the number of out-of-home visits over the last 6 years. You see that actually millennials was one of the driving forces that the market went down over the last couple of years. It's not the Gen Z, that generation that comes afterwards, this generation that currently is anywhere below 17, 18 years. It's also not the matures. They are actually growing. They use the restaurant industry more frequently. They come to our restaurants and eat and drink more frequently, but not the millennials. The millennials also certainly have a strong impact because they are really one of those generations that jumps on this homing trend the most. They're most impacted by the homing trend, but I mentioned earlier youth unemployment. If we're looking into many countries, and there's really just a handful of countries where the youth unemployment is not a very, very big problem of our society. Actually, in some of the specifically Southern European countries, youth unemployment has grown up to almost 50%. So it is still a problem. If the youngs are unemployed, they have budget constraints and they simply cannot afford to eat away from home. So what do these demographic and lifestyle changes actually mean for the food service market? First of all, we also talked about health and authenticity. Clean food is what people seem to be demanding. Clean food means that food without, free from certain aspects. There's also a growth of vegan and vegetarian food offerings. On the one end, there's more and more offerings of free without meat, dishes without meat. But actually, the group that is growing the most is not the vegans, it's not the vegetarians, it's actually what we call the flexitarians. They eat less food, they eat less meat, but they don't skip meat at all. Maybe they used to eat meat 3 or 4 times a week. Now they only eat meat 2 or 3 times a week. So that's what we call flexitarians. They actually reduce their meat consumption. People are seeking for simple, natural, healthy, and fresh products, fresh ingredients, and Maria is going to talk about that a little more. The urbanization is actually demanding us to deliver and provide food and beverages to people in a different way. There is a growing need for these delivery services, but we also see the aging population, which really requires a need for these healthier foods, but also adapted to different age groups. And with that, Maria is going to talk about quality and premiumization.
Hello. So, yeah, it's almost impossible to speak about the trends in food service without speaking about quality, premiumization, and health and ethical choices. We track the reasons why people choose to go to that or this restaurant. And actually what we know from European data, that the quality of products was the reason that was growing constantly over at least 7 last years. So the quality of products was one of the first reasons to choose the restaurant. And similar trends, we see them in the US, in Australia, and in Canada. In addition to quality, as you can imagine, there is a rise of one-item specialists in the big cities. If we speak about London or Paris or Moscow, in French we would call them monoproduits. So they position themselves that they know the best this particular product and they serve it in the best particular way. So this is also the confirmation of the trend about the quality that we saw. But in addition to quality, we also speak about health. So the health itself, it's not the main driver when we speak about going to the restaurant, because it's still around, let's say, 3% of motivations to go to the restaurant. But it's higher for the millennials, because people from 18 to 35, they grew up with all these crises related to food crisis and fast food crisis as well. So they are way more conscious about what they eat and what they have on their plate. Speaking again about health, I would like to mention that now the consumer is way more sophisticated than before. So he reads the labels. He wants to know where his food comes from. Is it organic or not? Does it have any benefits high in specific proteins or anything like this? Is it locally produced or not? And particularly in London, we have lots of vegan options, even in retail. And for example, Pret a Manger, they recently opened Veggie Pret, and it was a kind of just a store for several months, but finally they decided to keep it forever because it worked so well with English. One of the points I would like to highlight is that we spoke about this sophisticated food, and so it's true that the customers search for good food and enjoyable experience, but there are another side of the coin, which is more value for money concepts, and we will talk about both sides of the story. So first of all, why people go to the restaurant? The recent trend shows that they go more and more for socializing reasons, to spend time with friends, to spend time with family, to enjoy a nice atmosphere. And the concept that really benefited from this trend was fast casual. Why? Because they offer this nice atmosphere to the customers, but they also keep product quality high. So we can mention the chains like Vapiano or Factory & Co. or Big Fernand in France. So there's a big emphasis on quality of the products, but also good place to spend time with friends. And as you can see, fast casual grew by 15% since 2010 in Europe, while the total market was more or less flat. The impact that fast casual had on traditional market, and here we just selected an example of burger market, is that classic fast food really lost the number of visits. So people were choosing more of these modern fast casual chains, offering more premium burgers. And this is the trend that will continue, and we still see fast casual develop in Europe. But in addition to all these kind of fancy, fresh concepts, we have a little bit more classic approach. So now retail plays an important role in food service. We can mention Marks & Spencer in the UK and in France. We also have Lidl, we also have Daily Monop, and they develop more and more sophisticated concepts for ready-to-eat options. And if we track the volumes with our CREST panel with NPD, we see that the growth was plus 4%. Between 2010 and 2015, overall in Europe, which is quite important compared, as I said, to the total market that was flat. And who is really use retail? This is mostly millennials searching for some nice food for lunch. They want to have one-stop shop, so they want to have their drink, their dessert, probably their sandwich or salad, and attractive low price. But the most important thing is the visits are convenience-driven. A convenience, it's really the key word today. And one of the reasons I speak about convenience, that we see another trend in the market, which is the trend of the breakfast. So before, people had breakfast at home, very classic, but maybe a little bit boring one. Now, the number of offers for breakfast grew all over the place in different markets. And so people choose more and more often to have breakfast out of home. And the reason for this, in addition to this convenience and multiple choices, is also the fact that there's more and more single households. And so these are mostly single households who drive this growth for breakfast. And in addition, all millennials as well, who go for their nice coffee and, let's say, donut. In the end, what we see from this picture, we know that we have two different sides of the story. One side of the story is that people search for price and value, and it depends on their situation, on their occasion. If they don't have enough time, if they want just to fill themselves with a quick, snack, they go more for retail and convenience. If they want a nice experience, quality products, they go more for fast casual or casual mid-scale dining. And what we have in the end, we have the thinning middle. So the classic fast food is losing ground to these two different concepts I just mentioned. So how to stay competitive in 2017 and beyond? First of all, and this is very important, the society changes really impact food service market. And most changes are global, but with some local differences. The speed of change is increasing, and this is for everyone. And in addition, it's very important to keep up with the technology, because technology is something that drives new visits and access to the customers. Product quality is the key, but we shouldn't forget about convenience. And last point is that emotion is important, but the functional side is important as well. So in the global, in terms of global winners, we can mention fast casual, retail, supermarkets, bakeries, and delivery. So these are the channels that really grew over the last years globally. So what are the top trends for 2017? First of all, it's delivery revolution. Everyone speaks about Deliveroo. It's really à la mode. But the key here is to combine speed and quality of product, because if we don't meet these key requirements, we will not succeed with the delivery. The second point is the operator needs to give to the customer increasingly high experience. Okay. In terms of restaurant experience, so the customer will become loyal and will come back. It's also important to source from local producers, because to keep the quality high, but also show that you support your local farmers. And the final point is you need to take care about your customers for whom health is important and who want to have food with ethical choices. In the end, what does it mean for food service overall? We need to adapt our business model. We need to cater to healthy and ethical consumers, and we should be excellent in what we do. And a little bit more in detail. So if we speak about operators, there's different ways to come to the market. You can launch a new application so your customers can download like special menu, or they know how to receive your product from delivery, but you should find the right way to do it. For example, if you produce the French fries, and the French fries, they are not good at delivery, so maybe you shouldn't go there. So you really need to find the best choice for your business. The second point is that you need to have in your menu different products that appeal to today's customers, the wide choice for vegan, environmentally friendly, etc. But you also should keep your main menu. And the last point is that just good is no longer enough, because customers, they just expect the excellent service. And for the service suppliers and for manufacturers, first of all, manufacturers, they can also touch the final customers via the apps, because we have an example of Nestle, for example, launching an app talking about types of coffee and people sharing photos on Instagram. So the brand stays in the top of mind. About producing healthy drinks and food, this is important as well, because you need to follow the trends, and we all know that carbonated soft drinks are not as popular as before, and now they are slightly declining, and they are replaced by more healthy options like juices and vitamin waters and just plain water. So you need to follow the trends. And the last point, we need to be operationally excellent to really move forward with these new food service requirements. And I wanted to finish with the last phrase from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who can best manage change. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. On retrouvera dans un instant Ecolab et nous parlerons pour la prochaine table ronde sur ce plateau de la Sirha Télé de sécurité alimentaire en restauration. Tout savoir pour être au top. Voilà ce qui vous attend. À tout de suite.